Okay, let's dive into something a little different today. Our source material. Well, it takes us right into the energy of a live stand-up show.
Yeah, not research papers this time. We're looking at snippets from a Maximini show in London, specifically his interactions with the audience.
Exactly, those unscripted moments. So our mission here is to kind of unpack what we can learn from these raw bits of dialogue.
Right. We want to explore the mix of people there, how the comedian actually connects with them on the fly.
And pull out those little nuggets of information, those surprising details that pop up when people just share a piece of their lives.
It's like a peek behind the curtain, seeing how the audience itself shapes the experience. It highlights that unpredictable human side of
It
things.
really does. Every person brings their own story. And the comedian is sort of the catalyst, isn't he? Drawing it out.
Definitely.
So let's explore these moments together. See what they tell us about the people, the performance, the connection. We start right in the crowd.
Yeah, he immediately starts focusing on individuals. The transcript kicks off with him singling out a guy named Kevin.
And what's striking is Kevin's, well, his face. The comedian points out he's not smiling.
Right, suggests his wife Mara dragged him there. That's the hook. He
Yeah.
sees someone not giving off that typical comedy show vibe.
And he prods him a bit,
Yeah.
playfully, joking about Kevin suing him or that bizarre offer to go hang out later.
Yeah, the strip club line, it's pushing, testing the waters, trying to get a reaction.
And it seems to work.
Yeah.
Kevin eventually smiles. And he turns to Mara, Kevin's wife.
And she's the complete opposite, laughing, having a good time.
So he plays with that contrast, asks Kevin how he wakes up next to that energy difference. It's funny.
It really sets up his whole approach, doesn't it? Spotting individuals, noticing the dynamics between people, using these immediate observations.
Scanning the room, finding those little points of interest or maybe resistance. Okay, so building on that, he starts digging a bit deeper. Jobs, relationships.
He moves to Brian. Brian's there with his Iranian girlfriend. And the comedian notes Brian seems like a good guy.
Calls him a fun guy. Great attitude.
Then comes the job reveal. Brian's a psychologist.
Okay. And the comedian immediately links that back to the room, right? Joking that someone else nearby clearly needs Brian's help.
Exactly. And that someone else is the woman who identifies herself straight up as a genius.
Oh, wow. That's bold. How does he handle that?
Well, he pushes back, comedically, of course. He argues, you don't call yourself a genius. That's for other people to say.
Right. It's about perception versus self-proclamation. He even pulls Brian the psychologist into it, joking about getting a professional take.
It's a really clever way to explore ego, I think, in public like that.
Yeah.
He presses her, okay, but what kind of genius?
Which leads to,
She works for Apple.
right, Apple. And that becomes the next hook.
Mm.
He riffs on the possibilities. Is she an engineer? Customer service?
Yeah, he does that funny imitation, like, what can I do for you? It shows how comedians play with those instant assumptions we make based on a job title or a company name.
It makes you think about how much we define ourselves by work and how quickly others latch onto that label, a little snapshot of identity.
Definitely. Then he shifts again, this time based purely on appearance, spots a guy wearing prescription sunglasses.
Inside, in a dark theater.
Exactly. So obviously the question is why? And the explanation is kind of wonderfully absurd.
Uh-huh.
The guy says something like his vision gets better, but the color doesn't change.
Okay.
And the comedian just cuts through it, calls bullshit, which gets a laugh.
So what was the real reason?
Even better, he says he asked his doctor to look cool, and apparently the doctor prescribed the coolness.
That's amazing. And the comedian buys it.
He accepts the premise. He's like, the point is you're stylish, that's all that matters. He pivots from calling bullshit to just validating the humor of it, finds the truth in the joke, sort of.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Relationships. There was this one second date that became a whole thing.
Yes, Natasha from South Africa and her date.
And the comedian's reaction is pretty immediate, pretty strong.
Tells Natasha her date is bad news. Just like that.
Wow. On what grounds?
This is where it gets specific and kind of funny. The source shows him saying the show was sold out ages ago, like over a month.
Okay.
And he accuses the date of buying tickets in some dodgy way that messed up someone else's seat reservation, basically inconveniencing other people.
That's quite an accusation for a second date. Talk about escalation.
Literally. And he runs with it. Playfully threatens it'll be their last date, declares he'll be her date, offers this fantasy trip on Everest Airlines to LA.
It's pure hyperbole, creating drama from almost nothing.
And the transcript gives a little insight. He reflects on the date, maybe thinking he's got a golden dick, and the comedian refusing to let that ego mess with the seating chart. He really inserts himself right into their dynamic.
Okay, now let's move to a completely different tone, a much more sensitive moment involving Redika from India.
Right. This one stood out. Redika has an empty seat next to her.
And when the comedian asks, she explains why.
She shares that she lost her father last year and she bought the seat for him.
Oh, wow. Yeah. How did he respond?
The shift is instant. He offers blessings, becomes genuinely compassionate.
That must have changed the energy in the room.
For sure. And what's really interesting is how he connects it to his own life. He mentions he lost his father, too, back in 2015.
So it becomes a moment of shared vulnerability, not just comedian audience, but person to person.
Exactly. But then remarkably, he transitions back to humor, but it's humor rooted in that connection.
Oh, so?
He tells this specific funny story about his dad, imagining his dad's soul being annoyed about the money wasted on the empty seat, saying he'd rather be in heaven, you know?
Right, like complaining about being forced to watch the show from the afterlife.
Precisely. It's using humor to process grief, maybe, or to keep a memory alive in a certain way. And he ends it gently, joking he just heard her father laugh, calling him a funny guy. It acknowledges the loss, but brings back a lightness.
That's quite a tightrope walk. Okay, moving on, another big theme seems to be origins and identity, especially in a place like London. He talks to Gina and her partner from Russia.
Yeah, and he starts off with this playful, over-the-top aggressive tone, playing on stereotypes like, "I'll fuck you up, destroy you."
Clearly joking, though.
Oh, yeah, totally joking. Then he asks what they do.
And Gina plays along.
Perfectly. She throws it right back. "I kill people," calls her partner Alex the assassin, shows the audience is right there with him, ready to improv.
And the reality.
She's a teacher, which brings it back down to earth. But this whole thread about origins continues. He asks if anyone's just moved from Iran.
Finds a woman who arrived only 6 weeks prior. He confirms her English is good.
But then playfully questions if she's really getting all the nuances of the comedy. Jokes she might be secretly Googling stuff.
It touches on that layer of cultural context and humor, even if you speak the language well.
Right. And this leads into a broader, quite powerful moment about identity. He's talking to another woman.
The one who initially resists saying where she's from. None of your goddamn business.
That's the one. Gets a laugh. But then she says Bangladesh. And this triggers something in the comedian.
He gets quite passionate, doesn't he?
Very. He talks about being proud of your heritage, your ancestors, the importance of actually learning about where you come from.
Arguing that just saying, my parents are from X, isn't enough if you don't know the history or culture. That knowing is where real identity comes from.
It's a strong message. He also throws in that observation about London, how so many people there aren't from London ancestrally, and how we visually categorize people, she different color, versus, oh, you one of us.
Highlighting those constant identity negotiations in a diverse city.
And this game continues with quite a striking interaction with a 75-year-old woman.
Who's lived in the UK since she was 9, so 66 years.
Yeah, he compliments her, says she looks beautiful, and her story is pretty incredible.
She came from Iran as a child.
Her and her sister. Because their parents were forward-thinking, didn't have sons, so sent the daughters to the UK for education. It's a whole migration story in a nutshell.
Wow. A snapshot of history right there in the audience.
And there's another detail. She's visually impaired, using binoculars to try and see him.
And he goes closer to her.
Right. Closes the physical distance. But then, true to form, he makes a joke out of it.
Of course.
Jokes about her daughter maybe building up the show too much, like she was expecting to see Goltalo gold. And now that he's closer, seeing him fully clothed might be a letdown compared to what she imagined. It's gentle teasing, acknowledging the situation while still being funny.
Okay, let's circle back to Miss Ali, the woman who moved from Iran 6 weeks ago. There's more to her story.
A lot more. Turns out she's not just a newcomer. She's the tech champion of Iran and a world taekwondo champion.
Ooh, seriously.
Yeah. The source even mentions a famous Iranian soccer player messaging the comedian about her being there. She's clearly a significant figure.
So how does he handle that reveal?
He declares he won't roast her. Calls her the most dangerous person in the audience to roast. It's respect, framed as a joke about her fighting skills.
Clever. And who's with her?
Her coach. And the comedian immediately starts teasing him.
Ah, the contrast.
Exactly. Jabs at his appearance, wearing glasses, needing the gym, implying Miss Ollie's talent is just natural despite the coaching. It's all playful.
Even though the coach is also a martial artist and champion himself.
Right. He presents them together as this pride and joy, something special from Iran. It's a celebration, really.
Following this theme of origins, he finds someone from a place he apparently hasn't encountered before in his audience.
Algeria.
Yeah.
And the transcript shows genuine surprise, real happiness from him. He says, I've never had anyone ever in 22 years from Algeria. Expresses how impressed and happy he is.
That's quite a moment. And then
And then comes a joke that definitely pushes boundaries. He links Algerians to terrorist shit, asks them not to blow up the building.
oof, that's risky territory.
Extremely. But the source material is very clear that he immediately softens it, follows right up with, I love you, I'm totally kidding, we're all terrorists.
Oh.
Trying to frame it or diffuse it somehow.
It shows that high wire act again. And the immediate attempt to manage the risk. We're just reporting what the source shows, obviously.
Exactly. It's documenting the moment, including the joke and the immediate clarification attempt.
Okay, nearing the end of these interactions. A couple more quick ones.
Yeah, there's a brief mention of a couple. He first joked, smells like onion, but then quickly corrected himself and complimented how they actually smelled. A quick back and forth.
And the person whose job was hard to understand at first?
Right. Selfages due to the accent, which becomes a little moment about the accent itself.
Turns out they sell.
Fridges. And also perfume.
Fridges and perfumes. Okay.
And the comedian comments on their edgy look, finding the contrast funny edgy look. Sells fridges, but also perfume, smells amazing, ends by playfully calling them sensitive, a wuss. Just another quick character sketch pulled from the crowd.
Okay, let's step back now. We've journeyed through all these interactions. What's the big picture here? What does this deep dive into one London audience really tell us?
Well, first off, it's just a stunning snapshot of diversity, isn't it? All these different backgrounds, jobs, life stories, packed into one room. A real cross-section.
Absolutely. And it really highlights the comedian's skill set, not just joke writing, but this ability to scan, connect, improvise, draw people out.
Yeah, it's part observation, part quick thinking, maybe even part, like, mini therapy session sometimes.
True. It shows how these personal details, where you're from, your job, who you're with, your experiences, even your sunglasses, become the actual building blocks for connection and laughter in that live space.
They're not just facts. They become points of shared curiosity or relatability, or just plain comedic fuel.
And we saw him navigate tricky stuff too. Loss, identity, nationality, taking risks, sometimes needing to quickly clarify or soften the landing.
It underlines how live comedy can be this space for vulnerability, really, for both the audience members who share and the performer navigating it all.
So a transcript like this, it's more than just jokes on paper. It's a window into how people interact, how they present themselves when the spotlight swings their way.
Yeah, how they react to being seen in that public way. It's fascinating.
It really is, like getting these curated glimpses into dozens of lives, all woven together for a couple of hours by the performer, makes you appreciate the sheer human variety in any group.
Exactly. Stand-up, when it works like this, feels less like a lecture and more like a shared, messy, funny exploration of just being human. The audience become characters, too.
So we've revisited Kevin Amara, the Apple genius, the guy with the cool sunglasses, Natasha's second date drama.
Yeah.
Ridiculous touching tribute.
Juna, the assassin teacher, the recent arrival from Iran, who's also a world champion, the proud woman from Bangladesh, the Algerian attendees.
The 75-year-old sharing her journey, Miss Ali's coach, the fridge, and perfume seller. It's quite a cast.
It really drives home how much story is sitting in any room just waiting for a prompt.
And the comedian acts as that prompt, that guide, turning individual threads into collective moments, mostly through laughter. It really does make you think about your own story.
Yeah, maybe that's the final thought for you listening. Consider this. How much of your own story, your job, where you feel you're truly from, maybe a recent big event, or just a little quirk do you carry around with you, maybe unseen?
And how readily or maybe hesitantly would you share some of that if someone, a comedian or even just a curious stranger, put you on the spot in public? What might that reveal about connection, identity, and how we navigate those things ourselves?